Good morning, everyone. Today, day 12, part 1 from CCNA, topic DHCP and SSH. First, we can discuss about DHCP. DHCP, which is Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, which comes under UDP, allows every client to get the IP automatically, which means let's say India IP works in order to communicate any of the device, which is mandatory to have IP address. Either it could be wired, wireless systems, or any IoT devices. It could be anything, but it is mandatory to have IP address. So those IP, either you can give by manually, or even you can assign IP through automatically. Those automatic IP, which I referred as DHCP. Let's say you have in reality in many of the company, generally they go for DHCP to maintain they have more buildings or more floors, or within flow more systems, etc. So we can go ahead with a minimum design. If you think that you have let's say we can take an example of computer. You have 3 PC, PC0, PC1, and PC2. This system, yes, we need to connect it to the switch. So we connect it to port number through either copper or fiber. We connect it to port number F0/1 of the switch, F0/2 of the switch, and F0/3 of the switch to the NIC of the system through UTP cable. Okay. In a manageable switch, you can configure the DHCP under switch, under router, or under appliance, which is any specific services, like for example, wireless LAN controller for providing wireless services, or in that wireless controller, we can configure the DHCP, or we can use Microsoft system, which is generally called server OS and server system, where you can create a scope and super scope way to design an IP address. So here we have a switch. Now, in a manageable switch where you can configure DHCP, the system, by default, it belongs to VLAN 1. As per our design, these 3 ports we will be assigning into VLAN 10. So we need to have pre-requirements, or what exactly we wanted to have a configuration. So VLAN 10 name I would refer as a test _10. Okay. In order to work this, what all the information that you need in DHCP. Let's say in DHCP, you need to create a pool. Pool is nothing but the pool will have the IP address. So the client who needs an IP will reach to the pool and will get it from there if IP addresses are available. So you need to define a pool name. So let's say I'm going to put the pool name. Let's say I'm going to put the pool name test _10, which is equivalent to the VLAN name. We can give any name, but it's more recommended to give the same name in order to match the services. So when you look into the pool name, you will come to know that pool is referred to which VLAN or which network. The next, you need to define the network, what network that you need. You can assign any address from class A, B, C. Let's say in an easy way that's to understand, you're going to give 192.168.10.0. So here When I say 190.168.10, you can refer the third octet of the 10 is matching with your VLAN ID. That is one of the criteria when you do design. Any network address from class A, B, C that you can give, but keep in mind the third octet, try to match it with your VLAN ID. That is the best design factor. Okay, you define the network. Then you also need to define the subnet mask. So to get the IP address to the client, it could be any client like a system, telephone, or the access point, access control system, CCTV camera. It could be anything. To get the address to the edge, to get the edge devices, you have to assign an IP address either by manually or through DHCP. So here in our design, we're going to give the DHCP in the switch. Okay. So in the switch, when you assign a DHCP, the criteria that you need to create the pool is nothing but the name of the DHCP. So the client will reach to that pool to get the IP address from. Now, so we have assigned the pool. So we created a pool and the pool name, and we assign a network with the network address and subnet mask. The next criteria, you need to define the default gateway. The default gateway is nothing but when a system trying to reach out from within that network to outside network, the system should go reach to the gateway first. So the default gateway, or we could say that default gateway IP address. Here I could give, always keep in mind either first or the last address would be the default gateway. So here, because of /24, the default gateway we can refer with the 192.168.10.254, which is the last IP. Okay, next, we need to define the least time, but least time would be default. Least time is nothing but when IP address is reach the least time, it will check again to have the same IP. If not, they're going to take different IP. So these two are mandatory. And we can also define the DNS IP. What is a DNS server? In every organization would have DNS primary and DNS secondary. So you can give a DNS IP. If you don't know the company DNS IP, which you can define the default one, call 8.8.8.8, which is the public DNS address. Then you can give a domain name. This is also not mandatory, but you can give a domain name. Domain name is nothing but your company name with a .com. Furthermore on this, you have to define how many IP address should I reserved. So let's say in this design, when you apply this configuration into this switch, whoever from these three systems first will try to get the IP from the DHCP. The DHCP server release the IP address of the 10.1, which is the first IP. Then 10.2, then 10.3, until 10.254, which is already 254 consumed as a gateway. So in every organization, when we do design, we should need to know how many IP have to reserved. Example, in your design might have some servers, like for example, domain controller or backup server, file server, printer server, DHCP server, DNS server, the many server which can provide services. Or you might have, let's say, routers, or it could be any devices that you need a manual IP address. In that case, you need to reserve the IP address already. So if you do not know any services that you have currently, the best practice to define or reserve the IP address from starting few. Let's say I'm going to reserve the IP address here from reserved IP. Let's say from 192.168 to 10.1 until 10.10. I'm going to reserve the IP 10.10. So any system who are coming first to get IP from the DHCP pool will get the IP address 10.11.
because 10.10 until that reserved. Also, they have already defined one IP as a gateway called 10.254. We also need to reserve that IP. Okay, so this is the simple scenario where you can get the IP address. What you want to do, you need to have a system or the device who can support a DHCP server. Like here we have a switch. So the device who can support the DHCP server, you need to define the DHCP configuration on it. Then connect the clients, the client gonna get the IP address. The prior to DHCP here, what you have to do the first, you need to create the VLAN ID first. Assign the name to the VLAN, name test underscore 10 or -10. Then the default 1, 2, 3 ports belongs to VLAN 1. You need to change that port into VLAN 10. Then give auto IP on the system before you create the DHCP. The DHCP server will release the IP to the client. Okay, so we'll look into the configuration part in detail. Okay, so here I can reserve these two addresses in default. Let's say here. Fine. So if you look into the higher configuration, because I have a two different VLAN here, so that I define the VLAN address. If you look into the first IP DHCP excluded address, this is the command for excluding the IP address. Then you need to define start IP, then the end IP. So if you have a two IP like a 10.1 and 10.2 for reserved, so you can put the last IP is 10.2. Here I need from 10.1 to 10.10. Next, I have defined a separate statement again for the excluded address, which for 10.254, where I have a single IP in the entire statement. I mean, I need to define to exclude only for 10.254. Therefore, I've given start IP 10.254 and end IP 10.254. Hope you understood. We cannot omit the statement. We have to fulfill start IP and end IP. If you have a single IP, then you have to define same IP for start and same IP for end. Okay. Next, the command IP DHCP pool. This is the command. And what is the pool name? You can define any pool name which will be addressing what is the service that, because my VLAN ID is test underscore 10. Therefore, I define the same. Now you need to have a command called network, and you need to define what network that you want, like 192.168.10.0. Then you need to know what is the default subnet mask if you are defined with the default network. Here /24, therefore 255.255.255.0. Then the gateway, you can define any IP as a gateway. The best practice, either first IP or the last IP would be the gateway. The DNS server, I do not know the, my organization DNS. If you do not know the DNS exactly, you can put the public DNS. Then the domain name, you can put any domain name if you wish to, but the domain name is one of the mandatory stuff for putting the more security in the device. Okay, so now we need to configure this. Okay, then there are a few commands, like for example, show IP, DHCP tool is one of the command to see the, then few more commands. Then by default, the DHCP is disabled in the switch or router. We need to enable the DHCP for that IP DHCP service. So let's see the command again. Okay, so this is the command for configuring the DHCP. I will share it to the command as well. Okay, let us go back to the network. If you look into my design, you have a one switch and you have a three system connected in. Let's total six systems are connected to the switch. Out of those, 3 are in VLAN 10 and the rest of the 3 are in VLAN 20. Okay, so this is my VLAN 20. This is my VLAN 10. Here itself, I defined my VLAN ID 10, name test 10, network 192.168.10 network, and 10.254 would be the gateway, and reserved address are this. Same for here. Okay, and to reach the gateway, we need a gateway address in the switch. Generally in the switch, the default gateway, which will be defined with the VLAN IP address, which we learned in the earliest class. So the first task for us to configure the VLAN ID and assign an interface into those VLAN. So let us go to the switch to see what is currently. Before we look into the system, whether the system will have IP address or not. So let me click PC0. And you go to desktop. I look into IP configuration. Doesn't have IP address. Or the IP address, which was the old IP address. Let me see, we'll put again static and we'll put again DHCP to see is there any IP address. So here you can see that DHCP is failed. APIPA is being used. You can see 169.254. Let me look into the command prompts. We can see 169.254.190.50. 169.254 from class B, which is called as APIPA. APIPA is nothing but automatic private IP address, APIPA. APIPA will come to the picture when you try to give an automate IP, or when the system has failed to take automatic IP from the DHCP server and we were unable to assign an IP by manually. So the system by itself will get auto IP from within system, which is known as APIPA. Nammal static at IP koduthittilla. DHCP server configure cheyidu ennu vicharikkunnu allengil cheyidu ennittu by default system automatic ആയിരിക്കും. അപ്പോൾ സിസ്റ്റം ഓട്ടോമാറ്റിക്കലി IP എടുക്കാൻ ട്രൈ ചെയ്യുന്നു, അതേസമയം DHCP സെർവറിനെ റീച്ച് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുന്നില്ല, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ DHCP സെർവർ കോൺഫിഗർ ചെയ്തിട്ടില്ല, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ കോൺഫിഗർ ചെയ്തത് ബൈ മിസ്റ്റേക്ക്. ഫോർ സം റീസൺ IP എടുക്കേണ്ട സിസ്റ്റംസിന് ഓട്ടോമാറ്റിക്കലി DHCP സെർവറിന് IP കിട്ടുന്നതുമില്ല, നമ്മൾ മാനുവലി കൊടുത്തിട്ടുമില്ല. സോ അങ്ങനെ ഒരു കേസ് വരുമ്പോൾ system automatically or IP other than select team from the range of 169.254, which is class B. That is called APIPA, automatic private IP address. Here in our scenario, we have not defined IP by manually. We defined via DHCP. If you give static, you need to define what IP it is. So when a system which knows that I need to take IP from DHCP, they're requesting to DHCP, which is failed. So they were requesting to DHCP. So they are unable to reach the DHCP. It could be multiple reasons. Either DHCP is not configured, or it is configured, but for some reason, either not enabled or not reaching. We'll see what are the possibility to fail to reach the DHCP server. Now, in our current scenario, we need to see what is the reason for failing to reach the DHCP server. So in this design, our switch belongs to a DHCP server. This switch 1 will belongs to a DHCP server. So let us go to the switch. So here is my switch. So let me see. The first task, I have assigned the password, which is called CCNA, enable password. I think on the last session, when we're talking about test like telnet configuration, we discussed about enable password as well. We will have the same session again in the SSH configuration. So the first task to show VLAN, to see any VLAN that we have configured. If you look into this configuration, we can see that 10 and 20, which is VLAN test 10 and 20, test 10 and test 20 would be the name of the VLAN. Then you can see the port number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is already defined. Or you can see in this way, we put the show run command. We can see that port number 1 under VLAN 10, port number 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6 in different VLAN. Currently, we're going to talk about only VLAN 10, which is port number 1, 2, 3. Now, let us see any DHCP is configured. Show IP DHCP. If you do question mark, you can see many commands. So let's say pool. You can see no pools being configured, which means the DHCP is not configured. Or even you can run show run command. You can see some command is called IP DHCP exclude address is being configured, which is for the previous design. We can remove this. In order to remove in Cisco devices, the easiest way or the best practice or the recommended way, we always do no in the beginning. So we'll copy this. Okay. If you go down, you cannot see any DHCP configuration in the switch. Okay. We also have a, okay, let me remove the IP also. Let's config. In order to assign an IP address to the VLAN, we interface VLAN 10. To remove, no interface VLAN 10, no interface VLAN 20. Now, we have to remove the DHCP existing configuration. Let's say what I copied from the switch. So we can put no command. No. 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 We'll go back to the switch. Paste. Do right. Now you cannot see anything regard with the DHCP configuration. There is no configuration. Fine. So the easy way, let's say we can configure one by one. We have a VLAN and we have port number assigned to the VLAN. Now we can configure interface VLAN 10, IP address to the VLAN interface. Okay. IP address 192.168.10.254, 255. You can put the description saying that this interface for VLAN 10. Now you go for VLAN 20. You can put 20. This interface for VLAN 20. Do show run section VLAN. Section. We can say that 255. We are going to match any one of the fields. So here you can see that you have an IP address on VLAN 10 and 20. So now, or you can give a do show run command to see the configuration of the interface VLAN 10 and 20. Now we have a two option. Either we can copy paste the command or we can type by manually. So this is our configuration. Let's see, we can copy and we'll go to the switch. Either you can right click and paste, or you can do paste from here, or you can type. See, now I configured IP DHCP excluded address configuration here in the switch and domain name as well. Now do right, do show IP DHCP pool. You can see that you have a DHCP pool which you have configured and the IP range from 10.1 to 10.254. Or you can see do show run command to see the configuration. Here you can see that domain name. We'll see what is the domain name. Okay. The domain name is WR. We need to change the domain name, by the way. Let's see. You have pool and you have excluded address. So let me log into domain name, because we're already in the DHCP pool, or you can do one thing, you can go back IP DHCP pool, test underscore 10. Domain name, CML InfoTech. CML InfoTech. Do right. Do show run. Now the domain name has been changed. Now you need to enable the IP DHCP. DHCP service DHCP. Yes, that's the command. Service DHCP. You need to enable DHCP. Now we enable the DHCP as well. We'll go to the first system. Okay. See, automatically you can see the IPs have taken 192.168.10.11. It's already consumed because when the DHCP is configured, it has taken from them. So let me see the IP address. Before it was 169. Now it is 192.168.10.11. Or even you can see from the switch itself. Show IP DHCP binding is the command to see the command. You can see